Hey, welcome to CiviCoursify. Download the Android app and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to get instant access for all the videos. Also follow us on Facebook as well as Telegram. Hello everyone. In this video we'll understand the federal system of India. The contents of this video are: first, we'll look at the introduction of the entire concept. Second, we'll understand the difference between the federal as well as the unitary form of government. Third and fourth, we'll look at the federal as well as the unitary features of our constitution. And then we'll understand the concept of cooperative federalism. And last, we'll critically analyze the federal system of India. Alright then, let's begin. So let us look at the introduction first. Governments all over the world are classified as federal and unitary based on the relations between the central government and the state government. So we must notice these two terms and remember them, federal and unitary. The definitions of both these two types of governments are: unitary form of government, all the powers are vested in the central government, and if the state or the regional government at all exist, they derive their powers from the central government. Whereas in the federal form of government, powers are divided between the center and the state government by the constitution itself, and both operate in their respective jurisdiction. So in a unitary form of government, center is the king and it has supreme powers. It has the power to form or not form a state or a regional government. And in a federal form of government, both the center and the state or provincial government exist, and their powers have been divided and written in the constitution itself. It is not mandatory that both of them would have equal powers, but whatever ratio it has been divided in, it is mentioned in the constitution. Right, so let us look at some examples of unitary and federal form of government. As you can see here, the countries that are colored in green are federal and those that are colored in blue are unitary. So let us look at some examples. For unitary, the examples would be Britain, France, Spain, Italy, Japan, China, Belgium, etc. For federal, the examples would be India, US, Switzerland, Canada, Brazil, Russia, Australia, etc. Next, the Constitution of India provides for a federal system of government. Although the word federation is nowhere mentioned in the Constitution, Article 1 clearly says that India is a union of states. But it is self-explanatory that India is a federal system of government, because although India has both the federal and the unitary features, the good features of both the types of government, but it is more tilted towards the federal form of government, and it is self-explanatory that India has a federal system of government. Next, why federalism for India? I mean, India could have had a unitary form of government as well, but there are two reasons for this, two main reasons. First one is the large size of the country. Second is the socio-cultural diversity. So the geographical range of the country is huge, and if we go from north to south or from west to east, we notice there are a lot of states with social diversity, cultural diversity, with linguistic diversity, ethnic diversity. So all this had to be catered, and to ensure efficient governance of the country and to reconcile national unity with regional autonomy, states were required and a federal form of government, a federal structure was required. India is called a union of states and not a federation because it is not a result of agreement between the states. Like in the US, and the states do not have the right to secede from this union. As we know, there are so many states in India which can be altered or they can be merged. Their boundaries can be altered by the center, but the states do not have the right to secede from the Union of India and form a separate country. Next, let us look at the difference between the federal and the unitary form of governments. For federal, it has a dual government, center and regional. For unitary, there is a single government, center only. I mean, the regional government may or may not be formed by the central government. For federal, there is a written constitution. For unitary, there could be a written constitution like in France, or there could be an unwritten constitution like in Britain. For federal, the division of powers between the center and states are there. The powers have been divided and they have been written in the constitution, and there is no division of powers in the form of unitary government. So in federal, there is a supremacy of the constitution, whereas in unitary, the constitution or the supremacy of the constitution is not guaranteed, like in Britain. Rigid constitution in federal, and it could be a flexible like in Britain, or a rigid constitution like in France for unitary form of government. In federal, the judiciary is independent, whereas in unitary, the judiciary may or may not be independent. So there's a bicameral legislature in federal form of government. In unitary, the legislature could be bicameral or unicameral. Britain has bicameral, China has unicameral. Now let us look at the federal features of our constitution. So our constitution provides for a dual polity. We have governments both at the center as well as the state. And we have a written constitution. It is the lengthiest constitution in the world. It specifies the structure, organization, power and functions of the central and state governments. Clear division of powers is a key focus of the Indian constitution. The powers are divided between the center and the state governments through the central list and the state list mentioned in the 7th schedule of the Indian constitution. There is supremacy of the constitution. The Supreme Court acts as the guardian of the constitution and maintains its supremacy through judicial review. The Constitution of India is rigid, as it has the amendment procedures are strict and rigid. The judiciary is independent, as the security of tenure, and there are fixed service conditions for the judges which provide them independence, and this is required to maintain the supremacy of constitution and settle disputes between the governments, the Supreme Court and the independent judiciary. Now, bicameral legislature. India has bicameral legislature in the center, which is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now Rajya Sabha is there to maintain federal equilibrium as it represents the states. Next, we'll look at the unitary features of our constitution. First is that India has a strong center. So the union list is bigger and has more important subjects than the state list. Also, the center has authority over concurrent list and the residuary powers. So the 7th schedule of India provides for 3 lists. First one is the central list, second is the state list, and the third one is the concurrent list. So the center has jurisdiction over the central list, the state has jurisdiction over the state list, and for the concurrent list, both the center and the states can frame laws. But if there is a clash for a particular law, the law framed by the central government would prevail. Also, those subjects that are not mentioned in any of the 3 lists fall as residuary subjects, and these residuary subjects are those subjects where only the center can frame a law. So the states are not indestructible, which means that the states do not have territorial integrity. The center needs only simple majority to alter the boundary of states. India is also known as an indestructible union of destructible states. So this center has powers to alter the boundaries or to merge states or to divide states by passing a constitutional amendment law with a simple majority, and the states do not have the integrity to stop that particular amendment or to secede from the Union of India. Now India has a single constitution except for J&K. It is the only state that has a separate constitution of its own, but overall India has a single constitution. The constitution is not fully rigid. Many features can be amended with a simple majority, as we just saw here, and only the center can initiate an amendment for the amendment of the constitution. Now, no equality of state representation in Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, the representation for each state is based on the population of that particular state. Unlike US, where there are 50 states and the legislative body has 100 seats, 2 for each state. So the central government has supreme powers during emergency, national, state or financial emergency. There is a single citizenship, as we are citizens of India and not of any particular state. The US, Switzerland and Australia, however, have dual citizenship. So there's an integrated judiciary. Supreme Court, High Courts and other courts fall below the Supreme Court, and there is no clear restriction whether Supreme Court can frame laws only for the Union list or etc. So each court can pass jurisdiction for a particular law. It could be a state law or it could be a central law. Whereas in US, the federal courts can look at only the federal laws, whereas the state courts can look at the state laws. Next, we have an All India services, which is common to both the center and states, although there are state services as well, but the All India services are common for both the center and state. There is an integrated audit machinery. So the Comptroller and Auditor General audits both the center and states, but his appointment and removal is done by the President without consulting the states. So the states do not have a say in the appointment or the removal of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. The Parliament's authority over state list can be seen when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution in national interest, allowing the Parliament to form laws in the state list as well. So the appointment of the governor is done by the President. He acts as an agent of the center through whom the center exercises control over the states. So these are the unitary features. Integrated election machinery. So the election commission conducts election for both the central and state legislature, although this body is constituted by the President and the states have no say in this matter. And one more issue is that where the veto over state bills by the President. The governor is empowered to reserve certain bills passed by the state government for the consideration of the President. The President can withhold his assent and the President enjoys absolute veto over the state bills. Right, so let us look at this concept of cooperative federalism, which is very popular in the contemporary Indian polity. So to define cooperative federalism, it is a concept of federalism in which the national, state and local governments interact cooperatively and collectively to solve common problems rather than making policies separately. So cooperative federalism is all about interacting. The center and the state regional governments interact. They frame policies, they decide all the policies so that all the states and center benefit and there is no miscommunication of any sorts. So the 14th Finance Commission recommended the center to involve the states in a better way. The central government of India took various steps for cooperative federalism, such as setting up of Niti Aayog and more devolution of funds, 42% on recommendation of the 14th Finance Commission, goods and service tax. So Niti Aayog was formed by the current government, which is chaired by the Prime Minister, and it has the state chief ministers as its member to decide the policies for the states and for the entire country. So now let us look at the critical analysis of federalism. So India had deviated from true federalism by adopting various unitary features. Many experts call it as a quasi-federal constitution. Although Niti Aayog and GST are steps in the right direction, but to ensure that each state progresses economically and socially, various new initiatives are required. So the interstate councils, which are defined in Article 263, and the zonal council should meet regularly. This is an issue that the zonal councils and the interstate council do not meet regularly. There is a huge gap between meetings, and there is a need to ensure that the unitary features of the Indian Constitution should not be abused. So features such as the governor's powers, him being acting as an agent of the center, president withholding a state bill, president's rule, emergency provisions. These features are being debated regularly in the current affairs, and the center should ensure that these features are not abused. Some broad agreements need to be reached between the center and the state before introducing bills on concurrent subjects. So although this center has more powers as far as the concurrent subjects are concerned, the Punchi Commission recommended that there should be a broad agreement before framing laws in the concurrent subjects. So the state bills reserved for president assent should be disposed of within 6 months by the center, so that the state do not feel crippled. The international treaties should be negotiated with the greater involvement of the states if implementation of these treaties impact the states. So the center has full authority of negotiating international treaties without consulting the states, but it should be made mandatory or a good practice to involve the states so that the states can benefit in the best possible way. More freedom to states required in matters of direct technology transfer and tie-ups with foreign companies, and government for better trade and social development projects. So the state government should be allowed to have better ties with companies, multinational companies abroad, and with government direct relationships so that they can benefit with good technology transfer, good best practices, and in various ways to develop its social needs and various other aspects. So this is it for this video. The PDF notes for this video are available on the CiviCoursify Android app for free. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, download the CiviCoursify Android app, and follow us on Facebook and Telegram. Links are available in the description as well as comment section. Till then, thank you and take care.